Okay, this is the first ever Comic Book Cafe podcast. I'm Matt.
I'm Kevin, not that you care.
And we are...
Well, let me tell you something, man. Every single time I watch a podcast, these people spend like 3 minutes talking about themselves and who they are and where they live. Who cares,
That's true.
man? Just tell me what I came here to see. You said something in your headline. I was interested. I tuned in, and I just
get to it.
Get to the point, will you?
Okay. Well, here's the point.
I'm just kidding. You could talk. Tell them who we are. Go ahead.
All right. I'm on a short leash. So the Comic Book Cafe, where we are shooting from live, is in Grand Island, New York, right, just outside of Buffalo, and we are a fully immersive superhero-themed pizza place. Think Hard Rock Cafe, Rainforest Cafe. We are bringing the world Comic Book Cafe.
Yeah, that's about right. That's who we are. We got superhero statues, and we have a comic book store, which is kind of cool. We have old comic books. And
everything in the rrestaurant is for sale, correct?
Yeah, everything's for sale, yep. But it's all over the place.
Everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, you walk in the front door, and the kids, they lose their minds when they see the Incredible Hulk. He's like 9 feet tall, and it's like they all start. Some of them cry, some of them scream and have joy, and
I feel like adults feel like they're kids again a lot of times too.
Oh yeah, and even. This is set up to where even the adults really enjoy themselves here because it's got a classic theme to it. You can see we got some stonework and fireplace and there's a lot of nice things. You feel like you could hang out here with your wife and have a glass of wine. This is not like just some sort of romper room for
no. It's
kids,
definitely why I say Hard Rock combined with Rainforest.
Yeah, that's true. That's why you say Hard Rock. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that makes us very different is in addition to huge statues of all the famous superheroes, the huge Incredible Hulk people take their picture with all the time, we have our own universe of about 80 characters.
Wait. Before you get into that, I got to say something real quick. I just need to do a shout out to the Buffalo Bills. My Buffalo Bills, not yours.
Ask you about that.
Because, they just won the AFC Championship, and they're awesome. They won 5 games in a row to claim the crown, their second seed in the playoffs.
Remember how I was on a short leash? So are you. Screw the NFL.
Yeah, Matt doesn't like the NFL. He's boycotting it still.
I was a big fan, and it's nothing against the Bills. I'm from Buffalo like you are.
Well,
however, I'm on a short leash still. I'll be brief.
All right.
However, when you kneel during our national anthem in support of an organization that was actively at the time burning down churches and police stations, I'm done. I'm done forever.
Yeah,
that's not a popular opinion because so many people. It's an amazing product visually.
It's fun. Fixed. It's kind of like the WWE.
100% it's fixed.
WWE's entertaining too.
Yes.
Used to
and
be
the
WWF.
NFL is not much more. I'm not saying the players are rigging it at all. I'm saying that
someone's rigging it. I don't know who
sure.
it is.
No, nothing against the athletes.
All right, we're not going to get into the NFL's.
That was the Comic Book Cafe podcast.
We were talking about
our own characters.
Yeah, we're talking about our own characters.
Spend a minute on that.
So we here at the Comic Cafe we created about 80 different characters and villains, heroes and villains to put on our walls and to write comic books about. We do a lot of marketing with these characters, and we had a lot of fun with them. So creating them was a lot of fun for me and my kids. And
so you said we, which I appreciate, but you're the main creative force behind creating all of them. How exactly? People ask me all the time here, well, how the hell did you guys come up with these?
Well, it's funny because I take inspiration from different people. So, if you said something about a character that, I thought was interesting, I might just take that little tidbit and turn it into a whole superhero or a villain. Or, our bartender, Laura, she
has her own character.
She's got this own style about her that is interesting. So I, kind of created a superhero based on her.
I don't know if Laura would describe herself as more emo or goth.
She's got a little goth thing going on, and so Black Toxin, the superhero is kind of Laura inspired that character. So it's kind of fun.
She's not the only one, but that's a perfect example. But so you took inspiration from real people.
Yeah,
was there a specific process? Because you've been into one thing I do tell people as well. Kevin has been an encyclopedia of old school comics since he was a little kid, especially Marvel.
Yeah, so when I created that
Take
first
the glasses off. You look nuts.
Oh, I'm sorry. My Buffalo Bills glasses. I'm proud of my Bills, man. What could I say?
Well, I'm glad. I'm happy for you.
So when I created that first character, if you remember this conversation on the phone,
Yep.
you said I was crazy. Like, what are you talking about? We can't create our own characters. And that very first character
very
was
resistant, yes.
that first T-shirt that we created with the Dr. Doom looking guy, and that was great. But then I started sketching some, and I didn't.
Who is not named the Shadow King?
Well, I didn't realize that this vast encyclopedia
Yep.
of knowledge of all the characters would make me the perfect choice to create characters because I know what not to do. Like you can't do this. He looks too much like Spider-Man. You can't do this. He looks too much like Batman.
Was there a process you followed for that? Because originally you're just figuring it out as you go.
It was just complete chaos. It was just. I don't even know if there was inspiration at the very beginning. It was just kind of.
Well, you studied Stan Lee your whole life, right?
Well, that's true. That's a good point. I mean, everything Stan Lee does, I'm into it. I think it's cool. The way if you watch one of the Stan Lee documentaries that are out there, it's really cool. And he's got all these pictures up on his office wall of all the different color combinations of all the characters. And that was just like my office. Man.
Yeah,
Remember, I had all the characters all over my office,
all over the place.
So what I was doing when I put all the characters up on the office was that, and Stan Lee did the same thing. He would create a color scheme based on what color scheme they needed. So okay, we got a green guy, we got a red guy, we got a blue guy, we need an orange guy.
Okay.
I am telling you right now, as a historical certainty, that's how Stan Lee did it. He because of the color, Daredevil is yellow and red to start off, because he just needed that. But then he realized that was terrible, and then he switched them all to red.
Okay.
And so I'm telling you, the color scheme was the real thing, and I did the same thing. That's why the characters were all over the walls, and I said, okay, we need an orange guy. And
people come in and ask about it. A beer distributor or food guide come in and ask, hey,
That's right.
what's going on in here?
you guys
And
are
Kevin
nuts.
start telling you, and don't tell them.
Because they probably think we're crazy.
Yeah, because the beer guy is going to become this world famous comic book guy.
But that's how Rage got created.
Yeah.
One of our main characters is
Yeah, it's probably
Rage,
my favorite.
He's like a Hulk-like character. He can actually grow the size of a giant man. He's a very large character, but he's orange, and which is weird, right? I wish we'll have to show a picture of him as we're talking here when we edit this. But that's how I was inspired to make him orange for the same process that Stan Lee took. You got to choose a different color.
So we're creating these, you're creating these, and then I would chime in. And then one day Kevin calls me, because we're very professional and we're expert at all this. And then I'm standing by the pool one day in the summer, and you call me. You'd sent me a text message with a picture, hand-drawn picture. And then you called me, and you're like, hey, what do you think of that? Tell that story briefly.
Well, what he's talking about is my son Cameron, who was 7 years old at the time, really wanted to create characters with me because it's fun, it's having a good time. So he's like, Dad, I got this idea for a character.
We're like, get out of here, kid.
This
Come on,
boy,
leave it to the experts.
his shadow comes to life, and he can control it. And the shadow's like really tough, and he's like the Hulk. He can
Go
beat
back to
people up.
school. Get out of here, kid.
And so I draw this character, and it looks like Robin. Maybe the first one looks just like Robin. He's like, no, Dad, no, come on. He's got to be 7 years old like me.
Yeah.
So I had to draw this little kid,
Ironically,
with the shadow coming up. He's like, yeah, that's the one.
and his name has to be.
He had a couple different names, but I think ultimately we decided on Shadow Shifter. So Shadow Shifter is his name. It's a 7-year-old kid. He's got this homemade, goofy-looking costume that's his favorite shirt, and
But his powers and his backstory that Cameron gave him are unbelievable.
So then that same day that he created that, he says, you know what, Dad, we got all these shadow characters. Let's create a shadow team. I said, that's a good idea. And I said, let's call them the Fraternity of the Shadow.
That's actually a really good idea.
Thus we, through Cameron's inspiration, we've created this Fraternity of the Shadow, which is just a unbelievable, great story. Way too long to talk about it right now. We'll have to talk about it in another episode. But fantastic storyline. Once you get into the storyline, the characters. That's the interesting thing about the brilliance of Stan Lee. Really was writing the stories. Mm-hmm. You can make these. There's if you look on Pinterest or something, there's a bazillion superheroes and villains out there, but creating the stories to go with them really bring the characters to life, and that's the genius of Stan Lee. He was brilliant at writing. I mean, he was writing, 2-3 stories a day. He was doing it just to make money, but he could pump those out like nobody's business. And sometimes they were fantastic, sometimes they were goofy. But man, that guy could write, man.
You've told me so much about him over the years that I think what you've called the simplicity of Stan Lee's work in an admirable way. Maybe that comes from the fact that he would do it on the fly. Well, what's that? You need a new fur coat? Oh, let me go write a couple stories.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Does that contribute to the simplicity, you think?
That was exactly how he worded it in one of the documentaries. He would say, like, my wife would spend money, and I said, don't worry about it, honey. I'll make some stories up tonight, And he was the editor that bought the stories from other writers.
Right here.
So he would buy it from himself. You know what I mean? So he had a good situation going on there where he's the writer and the editor.
There's some shifty shit going on there.
Well, but I think it worked out pretty well for those guys. I tell you.
Well, those guys is part of the key too, right? Like his team around him that you've talked about so much, I think was a big contributing factor to that success.
Oh yeah, like Steve Ditko and Jack Kirby. Kirby was a genius. Really ahead of his time when it comes to the superheroes and stuff. He was much older than Stan Lee. Stan Lee was really just a kid when he started. I mean, when he wrote his first story, I think he was like 16 or something like that, which is by today's standards seems like, what are you talking about?
Right.
I'm telling you, he was like 16.
Still cutting the grass.
And then, Jack Kirby's,
I invented Superman.
Listening to this kid and I don't know, it just came together, man. And when he started creating the superheroes, that's when the sales started kicking up. And, then, because it's all about the dollars, right? They only went with what sold. Well, Stan Lee said, I'm going to do it my way, and let's try it. And they said, okay, and it sold, so it was great. It was fantastic. It was brilliant. And they sold a lot of comic books and just kept it going.
You mentioned Ditko, who maybe we should call the elusive Steve Ditko.
Well, Steve Ditko was a little bit strange. Historically, it's hard to get any information about who he was really. I mean, you're getting stories from other people, but I don't know if I've ever actually heard him, speak or read anything that he said about things. Now I know that there was a little, he had an input on who Spider-Man was. So Stan Lee went to Jack Kirby first and said, okay, draw me this guy that crawls in the walls, and Kirby drew him like Captain America, big, strong, superhero type, and then Ditko that didn't work out. So then. Stan's like, that's not right, and then he goes to Ditko because Ditko had this, his people were a little bit more scrawny in his comics and stuff. So that's exactly what Stan Lee wanted. He says, I want you to draw it because I want him to look like a scrawny teenager, like this wimpy, nerdy, scrawny teenager, and that's going to be more powerful to the storyline. Which, of course, inevitably, as history has it, it was fantastic. It worked out great.
That's amazing. How things come together sometimes on accident, You put so much effort into a direction you're trying to go in or a task you're trying to accomplish, and then something like that happens. He switches. Imagine if Stan Lee didn't switch the two of them. We would never have Spider-Man.
Well, Spider-Man just would look a little differently. That's all.
But would it have hit? Is my point.
I think so. I think so because it's about the story. It's not about the look of the character. I mean, Spider-Man could have been green, and he still probably would have hit because a teenage nerdy teenager that's dealing with real world problems, but also dealing with the fact that he's got these superpowers. He can't tell anybody because he fears that his Aunt May is going to get in harm's way from the villains. So, he keeps his identity secret. So, it's that storyline is what I said earlier about the stories make the character. The characters don't make the stories. So, you want the characters to look cool, right? I mean, everybody wants their characters to look cool. But ultimately, it's the story. So, Spider-Man would have been a success if he was green and orange.
Well, no, that actually does. No, I mean, you're the expert there, but that actually does touch on a question that I often wonder why. I mean, you partially already answered it, but I often wonder why some superheroes become background noise more often than not, and some of them become superstars, essentially, like Spider-Man. And I've often wondered what the relatability is. What is it that makes that happen?
Yeah, I mean, it's just the coolness of the stories. I mean, Superman being an alien from another planet. I mean, it's just cool stuff, man. It's just fun, and it's just good old-fashioned fun. And as the stories evolve, you get to know the characters, and just like when you're watching a series on Netflix, and at first, once you get involved with the characters, you're hooked. You can't escape it. You gotta pay attention to what's going on with these people because you want to know how the story ends. So comic books are no different. It's just a different media there, and it's the same thing. You want to really introduce the background characters that get you hooked to the storyline that makes the story a success.
Well, you had talked also about not so much the relatability of it, but you've said before that you think the right combination is a mixture of reality and fantasy, if that makes sense, in order for people to be able to relate to it. It's almost believable, right? Like Iron Man.
That's exactly right. So believable fiction is the best fiction out there. So you remember at the beginning when they did comic book movies, when they were Superman? Superman was pretty decent, but Batman was getting a little goofy there. Like the first one wasn't bad, but then the second one with the penguin and the stupid penguins, and it started getting stupid. Like it's not even believable anymore. So when it becomes not believable anymore, you ruin the movie. You know what I mean? So you got to make it like within the scope of possibilities. Yeah, I mean, you could introduce crazy things. I mean, you introduce like the Infinity Stones and the Gauntlet. That's crazy, but at least it's there's a storyline and it's plausible within the fiction. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when they get outside that scope and they start doing bizarre things, that's when that's when you ever have those moments in a movie when you're like, oh, geez, what the heck are they doing? It's because they lost the truth for a second there. For you, because you want that fiction to be believable. When they do something bizarre, it's like, okay, that's stupid.
That's a really good point, because I could definitely see that.
Let me give you an example. So, like in Endgame, in Avengers Endgame, all the superheroes come back from the dead, and it's the fight with Thanos, and it's nice. It's a great fight, and then all of a sudden, like all 10 of the girls come together in one scene, and they're like, okay, we're tough girls, and we're gonna fight Thanos or whatever. And it's like, stop, please. You're purposely, you have this great scene going on, and all of a sudden you force feed me some made up nonsense where all the 10 girls are standing at the same spot at the same moment, and they're all going to attack at the same time. Like,
just to forward a political ideology.
That's obviously right, but I'm watching a movie, and it doesn't even fit the movie. You lost the truth.
Yeah.
You lost the truth of the movie. The believable fiction, the truth, and for that moment, you lost me. Because you try to change, do something bizarre.
It's a really good point.
So that stuff drives me crazy. But
one of the things that you said unbelievable. One of the things that is unbelievable, speaking of Spider-Man, is it's a little hard to follow, but the ongoing boondoggle that is the rights to the Spider-Man ownership and the Spider-Man movies, right? Between Sony and Disney. Now it's between Sony and Disney, right? Do you want to give a little bit of a recap, minute or two recap on how that started? And we'll talk for a minute about where that is now.
Well, yeah, I mean, Marvel Comics was in disarray and in bankruptcy, and here comes Sony to, hey,
Disney owning Marvel,
give us Spider-Man, and we'll give you some money, and that'll work for you guys, right? And they actually offered up all the superheroes of the Marvel Universe for $25 million, which even by those standards in 1998, $25 million wasn't that much money for all these superheroes. You're basically taking our whole company.
Billions of dollars.
These are just the movie rights. So they're not. They don't own. Sony never owns Spider-Man. They just own the movie rights of Spider-Man and every single one of Spider-Man's. Every character in the Spider-Man universe. Which is an interesting point because there's like 400 or something like that. I don't remember what the number was, but it was some ridiculous amount of characters that they got in that deal for $7 million. Now they just sold.
Unbelievable.
They just sold the rights back to Disney for $4.1 billion. That's a pretty good investment there. Of course, they made lots of money along the way. So
Made a lot of money.
I think that was a pretty good deal there for them.
And I think, so Sony licensed the rights. Sony at that time then has the rights. Disney buys, sometime after that, Disney buys Marvel entirely and now owns Spider-Man as well. But they don't have the movie rights to them. It's this weird combination. And if I remember correctly, Sony, in order to maintain these rights, had to make a Spider-Man universe movie every 3 years. Heard somewhere else it was
3
3 years
or
and 9
5 or
months.
something. I forget, but
There was a 5 in there somewhere, like it had to be put out no more than 5 years after being made. It was this weird set of rules they had to stay within.
or they were going to lose the rights. So
Right.
so they, of course, they had to produce these movies. So they kicked them out, and of course they made a lot of money on them. So they just kept kicking them out, and they're not going to stop. And then now they're kicking all the secondary characters. Morbius the Vampire was a movie a couple of years ago, and then of course they're coming out with Kraven the Hunter, which is potentially awesome. Very cool character from the Spider-Man universe. There's been like obscure characters they're talking about making movies, like this character called Madam Web, a very like this psychic woman that's paralyzed or something. Bizarre character. I don't know how you make a movie about that character, but whatever, man. They're doing whatever. People seem to show up. If people show up, I guess keep making them.
I feel like for a period of time, at least, Sony was putting these out, like you said, even alternate Spider-Man universe characters, not happen to be Spider-Man himself, just to maintain these rights to some extent. But now the deal's changed. Like you said, Disney, I believe, bought back those rights, but Sony's still involved somehow.
Yeah, there's some
this
sort of
95-5 thing. If Spider-Man is the main character in the movie that Disney makes, then Sony gets, I think, 95% of the gross. And if Spider-Man's not the main character, then there's a different split. But I think that's only for a period of time.
Yeah, I think it's 5 years. I think they're trying to. They call it a transitional phase,
Right.
where they're transitioning the ownership rights there. So Sony after 5 years, I think, is done.
I think so. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they're done. Which surprised me a little bit. You'd think they'd negotiate a little tidbit in there, like the way Obi-Wan, what's his name, Alec Guinness. Negotiated like 1% ownership of like Star Wars, way back in the day.
Yeah.
That was genius, right? I mean, at the time, they're like 1% of nothing. You're like, who cares? Here you go. Here's 1%. No problem.
And he was one of the more experienced guys, so I guess that's presumably why he could pull that off.
That was absolutely genius. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't even know
Yeah.
what's 1% of the Star Wars franchise.
Oh, my
like
God.
$50 billion? I
God.
don't know.
I
love it.
I mean, the new Disney Star Wars is a whole different story. Many
Oh, boy.
the
if we're talking
woke
about that nonsense.
leftist injection of politics.
Well, it just, without even going into the politics right away, I mean, they're ruining.
Yeah.
They ruined.
Well, that's
they
the key.
ruined the universe. They took all these. They had there was a ray of hope there with the Mandalorian. Luke showed up and took the baby Yoda, away
Yep.
at the end of the Mandalorian season 2, and it was just like,
Oh my God!
yes, somebody
When Luke showed up-
figured this out. What to do here.
So Disney drops that episode, all the episodes of Mando, right? At 3 East, we're on the East Coast, so Mandalorian would drop at 3 a.m. And I would stay up, hoping I didn't have to be here early on Wednesday, but I think it was Tuesdays they dropped it at 3 a.m. And, I have family that lives in the house with me. I'm not alone. So I'm watching it as quiet as I can. And then Luke, and I'm standing up, I'm my little basement theater, and I'm like as tense as could be. And here he is. And then Luke appears, that you just said in the last episode.
Every Star
And I'm
Wars fan
screaming
everywhere
and
loved that.
yelling and jumping up and down. I'm kicking the air. And I think I woke everybody up.
Yes, these people are finally starting to
Yes.
figure stuff out.
100% right.
Capture some of that magic from
Yes.
the 70s and 80s.
I felt like it was 1984 again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was just an awesome moment. It's just brilliance. I mean, that was John.
It was 83.
I think that was John Favreau.
Jedi.
Wasn't it that did that? The Mandalorian.
I believe. Well, that portion of it was, I believe, Favreau and Filoni together.
Okay.
if I'm correct.
Okay, so and then when Favreau got out of there, the franchise. Who's that girl that took it over? Kathleen Kennedy.
Kathleen Kennedy was already there. She's the head of Lucasfilm.
Oh,
That's a
okay.
whole debacle.
All right.
She's the one that injected the woke leftist politics. I think I probably speak for superhero fans from all sides when I say I don't want any politics of any kind in my escapism, in my fantasy, right? Like that's part of the entire point is we want to escape for a few hours from reality, or if you're reading a comic book for 10 minutes.
Well, you're just,
to get away from
you're
life.
enjoying yourself, and then all of a sudden they interject this nonsense of like their political views. It's like, listen, you have every right to your political view.
Sure.
But why are you force feeding it to me within the media of like a fiction movie? Mm-hmm. It's bizarre, and it's not appropriate. It doesn't make any sense.
And as much as I'm a huge Disney lover, as you know, annual pass holder, DVC owner, etc., I despise what they've done to our pop culture, to our escapism.
Well, they're destroying it, and they're losing money for Disney. Disney's losing billions of dollars because of this nonsense.
Yep. In another episode, we're going to. I interrupted you again. Sorry, but we're going to talk about in hopefully next episode we're going to talk about the ongoing fight that you're touching on between Nelson Peltz, who's trying to force his way onto the board and right the ship financially, and Bob Iger and his team, who are currently controlling it.
I mean, thank God for this guy, man. Hopefully it works out for those guys because
absolutely,
they got to save Disney. And how are the other people, like regular people that own Disney shares, not losing their minds over all this nonsense?
Well, that's exactly right. The current board of Disney, I want to say it's in the range of 12 people. I might have that number wrong, but it's right around there. Own almost no shares at all. Some of the board members of Disney that control the direction of one of the largest companies on earth don't own any shares.
I didn't even know that was possible.
Well,
I thought you had to.
Very unusual. But these people were handpicked by Bob Iger. And they've, let's talk for a minute on that same note about a good example is the latest Star Wars announcement. The next Star Wars movie is going to be directed by Charmin Obaid Chinoy.
Wait a minute, I think you're mispronouncing it. Charmin Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Right? If that was her name, it would be awesome. But I don't care what her background is, or her ethnicity. I don't care if she's a man or a woman. I don't care about any of that. I care about that it's going to be awesome. And this woman who's been picked by Kathleen Kennedy and her team to direct the next Star Wars movie that's going to be about Rey again, that very few people like. She's just not an identifiable character. And I'm going to, give me a minute here, I'm going to go down this rabbit hole because speaking of Rey, and my point was about this latest movie in the comments made by this supposed director. I say supposed director because she herself has professed that she's proud of the fact that she never went to film school. She calls herself an activist. Like I said, I don't care what political side you're on. I don't want your politics in my escapism. And this is somebody who stands dead set against that mindset. She calls herself an activist. She said that she puts some form of activism in every film in her words, body of work. I'm like, I'm sorry, who are you again? Because I watch all of this obsessively, and so do you, and neither of us had ever heard of her until she started becoming notorious famous. It turns out that, if I'm remembering correctly, she directed 2 episodes of, I believe, the Ahsoka series, but I know that they were the 2 lowest watched episodes of anything on Disney Plus. And this is who you're picking.
Well, the Ahsoka was a brilliant idea, but they
great
absolutely
character.
Destroyed.
Horrible series.
Oh my! It is so awful.
We're going to make it an all-female cast, and because any guy or any person who says anything contradictory to that is an ist and a phobe and everything. No, we're not. Leia was an amazing female lead character.
Yeah.
Ahsoka, in previous series where she appeared, when originally Clone Wars, a number of other things, when she appeared in Mandalorian here and there, was an amazing female character. Gina Carano, shout out to Gina Carano, it was amazing as Cara Dune. And I could go on. There's plenty of other. I mean, if we're talking superhero universe as a whole, Wonder Woman. There's we have Blood Fury. You mentioned Black Toxin. That are our characters. There's plenty of amazing female characters. Rey is just not one of them.
Well, one other thing I just don't understand, because if I was creating a strong woman character that I wanted,
Well, you have.
but you want them to overcome, the man's world in a lot of sense. I mean, if you want to incorporate some politics to it, doesn't that make for a better storyline when the women triumphant over the man? Instead, you make a fake story where there's only women in it. The whole damn Ahsoka series, everybody's a woman.
Right.
There's like one guy in the whole damn thing. And it just doesn't make any sense. So again, the believable fiction.
That's a good point.
So when
bring it back to
when
that.
when you do nonsense like that, like this is one character, she's like green, she's got these like things, glasses on her head. She wears these glasses on her head the whole series. She never puts them on her eyes. So she just walks around with these glasses on her head. She's always everything's perfect on her. She's no dirt on her or anything. She's always perfect green with these perfect glasses and the perfect suit, and everything's perfect. It's like, what is going on here? Again, you lost the believable fiction. You ruined the You're attempting to destroy the Star Wars franchise by bringing this your politics to the big screen, and it
really makes me wonder. Maybe are they? I watch these things and I'm like, are they trying to destroy the Star Wars? I don't know.
It makes you wonder how these people keep their jobs, because they don't make any damn money.
You can't be that bad. Imagine if every pizza you ever made was burnt to a crisp.
I think these people that are in charge fear these people. I think that's why they get in these positions. They're a little bit scary, right? I mean, this Charmin Obi-Wan Kenobi, she said, men should fear me, or they should be intimidated by my movies, and they should be scared.
We have to make men intimidated. Put them in a position of being intimidated. And she's talking about with her work.
That's what you say before you make a movie? What the hell's
insane.
wrong with you?
You just alienated half of your audience.
What
I'm being generous.
If I said I'm going to make a movie and women should fear me?
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
It's absurd.
Insanity. What are you talking
you'd be
about?
canceled. But in the idea of a female character in Rey isn't the problem, as I listed. The problem is how they went about it. You touched on that. She's absolutely perfect from day one at all times. She's never. Luke Skywalker got his ass kicked over and over and over. He wasn't really any good until you could argue the end of the second, the beginning of the third, right? Until Jedi. By Jedi, right? Like he's starting to get good.
Yeah, so you're talking about 15 years or something like that
of his own character's evolution. He got his hand chopped off by his dad.
This girl became like a super mega Jedi that could stop the lasers from the gun, the plasma fire, in midair.
She stopped. I walked out of the movie when the third Disney movie, so 9. I walked out of it when she stopped was it Galactic Star Cruiser with her mind.
It's like, okay, so, we gotta stop. Let's just stop.
I'm working. I think I told you this, but I'm working in Silicon Valley. It was a very demanding job. And I had become, shout out to the legendary Nerdrotic, who's helped us, been an inspiration to us. We're going to do, actually, speaking of which, sidebar. So with this episode, we didn't bring it with us. We're going to do a giveaway. We should do a giveaway.
Yeah,
I'm putting you on the spot here.
Yeah, no problem. Whatever. We like give stuff away.
We'll try and put it up on the screen. So one of the people that helped us and inspired us to start our own podcast was the legendary Nerdrotic. And on their channel, we did a giveaway. It was a huge success on their Instagram.
Great. It was fantastic.
And so we should do that to kick off this first episode. We should give away 5 boxes. Is that too many?
Yeah, give away whatever you want. I don't care.
Let's do 5 boxes.
Sure.
So what you got to do to be entered is subscribe to the channel, to our YouTube channel here, and drop a comment in the comment section. It could be critical. It could be, I don't like you guys. It could be, this is the greatest show I've ever seen.
You suck.
You're still entered. It could be the NFL is rigged.
NFL is rigged. Let's face it.
So
if you still believe the NFL is real, then you're silly.
Yes, you are a silly individual. Very silly person. Back to the show. But sidebar from that, subscribe to the channel, Drop any comment of any kind in the comment section, and you're entered. We'll pick 5 winners.
And these boxes will contain some, just comic book related fun stuff. Approximately value $50 or something like that. We usually go above and beyond that number, but whatever. It's just casual, fun stuff.
Yeah.
We'll mail it right to you.
If you do, I don't think they can DM us on YouTube, but you can DM us on our Comic Book Cafe Instagram, comic_book_cafe. But what were we saying? The activism, men should be put in a position of fear. We were talking about Rey.
Well,
and
just how Disney's, they're destroying the Disney, world, basically.
100%. I was briefly telling the story of me watching the last episode 9, the last Disney Star Wars episodic movie. So I'm working in Silicon Valley. I had just started in the previous 6 months getting hooked on Nerdrotic, which later inspired this podcast. And I'm waiting. I bought tickets for the midnight show, even though I had to work the next day. So it's a huge sacrifice and a struggle. I had the biggest, 5-gallon tub of popcorn that they sell, and it drinks like a gallon size, and I'm so excited for it. I'm nervous because remember, 8, there's the wokeism and all the politics injected into it. So I was nervous, but I'm hopeful. And it was exactly what I feared.
Yeah.
And
it was not good.
I'm yelling at the screen, which I can't stand when people do, but I couldn't stop myself. And then when it got to the part where she stops the galactic star cruiser with her mind, I feel like a jerk now. I just did it without thinking. I'm so angry. I just lost my cool, which he rides me for all the time.
It's the first time ever Matt lost his cool.
A lot of themed restaurants.
I agree.
And we can't even answer the phone.
I agree. I wasn't in here, so I didn't hear.
Holy what the are we doing here?
I agree.
What the
That's what you're doing, answering that phone. Yelling off.
Anyways.
Yeah, first time ever. It never happened before. I've had many talkings to by Kevin. Is that the plural of talkings to? Wouldn't be talking twos. Talkings to.
I don't know.
What the are we doing here?
I agree.
What the
That's what you're doing, answering.
Enough of them that I should know the plural of it for remaining calm in all situations. And I threw my drink at the screen.
Did you ever get your money back for that?
Oddly enough, I did give my money back.
All right. Well,
I
good.
did get my
Good
money
job.
back. I want to say they even gave me an extra pass.
I think everybody got
They
their money
did.
back that showing because Matt threw the soda on the screen and the 100 people there in the movie theater
So
all
if you
probably were
saw
in terror and
The
traumatized
midnight
for life.
show in Redwood City, California,
It was
and
this
you
guy's
got your
fault.
money back. You're welcome, America.
Holy what the are we doing here?
Speaking of losing your temper and staying cool, you're a little bit on the spot here, so take a second if you need it. So Kevin has been doing this, been running businesses of many kinds, pizza shops especially, for at least 30 years. I mean, we've known each other 25, I think.
Yeah.
I would love to have, I'm sure the people watching would love to have a piece of business advice, a lesson you learned. It could be a story. Some people watching this may have hopes of having their own place.
Well, you're putting me on the spot a little bit. I
bit.
Came prepared to talk comic books. But, you know what? Just off the top of my head, if I had to give you some advice, say, listen, everybody you talk to these days is lying to you. Every single person. I know that seems a little extreme. I seemed a little bitter about it. But it's just many years of dealing with people that just they lie with a smile on their face. Hey, I'm your best friend. I have the greatest thing in the world. No, you don't. It sucks. It's
I'm
terrible.
laughing because there's a sign. There's a sign on the wall in Kevin's office that says it's been there 10 years that says everybody lies.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, it just. You know what? You know when it started? I swear this is when it started. It started with Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton was the first publicly getting away with lying.
He was good at it.
It was cultural changing.
Mm-hmm.
That's how big the lie was. He just lied under oath and got away with it, and that changed everything culturally. Like our whole
so
social,
slick, though.
everything from that moment on. Everybody just said, "Hey, let's just all start lying about everything."
I voted for Clinton when he came out on Arsenio Hall I don't know if you remember, playing the saxophone. I'm like, all right, that's a regular guy.
Yeah, I mean, he had that kind of persona.
Well, because you talked earlier, we're talking fantasy, but about being relatable and believable, right? He had that. He had that.
So if you're going into
back to the business advice.
If you're going into business, you got to go in with a clear understanding that everybody's lying to you. And listen, even if they're not lying to you, you got to go in with some sort of skepticism about what they're trying to pitch to you or sell to you, or your employee's telling you that the dog ate his shoe so he can't come to work. Most of these people are probably lying to you. So you just got to deal with that and figure out a way to what are they telling the truth about, or what's my truth about what they're selling. I don't care what they say, because what they say is a lie. I mean,
so you're not necessarily advising us to call them out on it all the time. You're more so advising people to follow their own inner compass.
Well, 100%. And then, like, when an advertiser walks in the door and says, "Hey, listen, we have 20,000 people that are subscribing to this. We're going to get you all these views and Facebook and this and that." Listen, everybody's lying. All that stuff's nonsense. You have to do your own work to figure out what the truth is and what's going to work for you. If you could accept and figure out what the results of that is going to be, if you're talking about an advertisement or something, you got to figure it out yourself. Hey, that doesn't work. So, I mean, you could tell me that your subscription is 20,000 people, but if nobody sees my damn ad, what's the point? What am I doing here? So stop lying to me.
Mm-hmm. And you may still choose to make whatever deal that is.
Because they're trying to sound like, okay, we got 20,000 subscribers, so 20,000 people are seeing what you have to offer. I said, well, that's not the case at all. In fact, it's a tiny, tiny number of that 20,000 people are seeing your product. So you just got to figure that stuff out for yourself, and let's just off the top of my head,
that's a very good point and a good place to start off. Every episode we'll try and have a piece of business.
I thought you were going to go into like the kid stories or the Joe stories. My son Joe.
So Kevin has. You're going to hear a lot about Joe if you watch all these episodes, but he is what you call a character, speaking of characters.
Yeah, Joe's starting his own podcast, Joe's Corner.
Joe's Corner.
That's next
shout out to Joe's Corner.
All right.
Smash like and subscribe. I believe he's working on his merch. Kevin has 7 crazy kids, and they're all maniacs. The majority of them are absolute maniacs. And so I wake up every morning waiting for the next Slay Chick Kid story.
Well, they're getting a little older now. So now, my youngest is 10 now. So, the stories are a little different when they get a little older.
Sarah's going to be mad at us.
When they were younger, the stories were gold. I mean, it was ridiculous. I just go on. And some of the stories don't even sound believable. Like this one day, I open up the garage door and I could right to the kitchen. I come through the mudroom, and I believe it was Lucy is probably 2 or something sitting on the island. With a bag of flour just whipping into the air, and there's flour, like snow-covered kitchen, the whole kitchen. It's like, it doesn't even sound believable, but I'm here to tell you, this is exactly what I did. I opened the door, I looked, I didn't say a word, I closed the door, I thought to myself for a few seconds, I said, oh crap, I gotta leave. I gotta go back in there.
So one time, I shouldn't be the one with the Slay Chicks kid stories. I didn't birth them or raise them, but I've lived vicariously through the years. So Kevin and I, there was a band here quite a few years ago, and it was probably 1 a.m. and we're just hanging out. And he says, dude, you say I gotta go, and I gotta go home and see what's going on. And I'm like, wait, you. Go! It's 1 o'clock. Everybody's asleep. What are you talking about? Stay and hang out.
Oh no, nobody's.
And you're like,
nobody ever goes to sleep in my house ever.
24 hours a day. Yep. And you said, listen. You're like, let me tell you what's going to happen. I'm going to pull into the driveway in about 10 minutes. Every light in the house is going to be on.
No, that's right.
The front door is going to be hanging wide open. The dog's going to be running around the yard. And all the kids will be chasing each other around with weapons of various homemade
all amped up varieties. On sugar or whatever.
And I said, well, what about Sarah? He's like, she'll be locked in the room with the door closed. Yeah. She's like, dude, you don't understand. He looks me in the eye and he's like, listen to me. We're not in charge anymore.
Yeah, we lost
It's like Children of the Corn. There's just too many. Lord of the Flies.
After about 3
Lord
years.
of the Flies.
What's the fourth kid? Well, actually, when Joe showed up, that's where we probably lost it.
So we'll leave you with this. So the next morning, I woke up. I was dying laughing in the bar at this hypothetical, imaginary scenario that wasn't reality, of course. Well-supervised, behaved children sleeping. And I called you as soon as I woke up, and I said, I got to know what happened. And he said, well, let me tell you what happened. I pulled in my driveway about 10 minutes later. Every light in the house was on. The front door was wide open. The dog was running around the yard. And the kids were chasing each other with homemade weapons. And I screamed at him and I said, the one at the back of the line chasing the rest of them up the stairs, I said, what the heck are you doing up? And she looked at me and said, I don't know. And took off running like I wasn't even there.
Oh, yeah.
That is a
joys
day
of
in the
big
life.
families. Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Good stuff.
Many
Good
more
stuff.
Slay Chick stories
Yeah, we'll share a story
coming
with
your
you
way.
once in a while.
Some
here and
business
there.
advice, a lot of comic book, pop culture stuff, Disney, Star Wars, Marvel news. We'll mix in some restaurant stuff here and there, a little eclectic podcast.
Yeah, we should probably do that. Show them a little more about what we do here at
Yep.
Comic Book Cafe.
But that's us. We're at just over the 45-minute mark, a little bit long for the first one.
That's a little bit.
We will break this up and show you different clips of it from time to time. But that's it for us.
All right,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thanks for
Please
tuning in.
smash like, and subscribe to the channel to help us grow and be entered for the first giveaway. We are the Comic Book Cafe podcast. I'm Matt, and this is Kevin with the silly glasses.
Go Bills.